Welcome to the United States of America. I am your president, king, and sovereign. I'd like to welcome you all to the first day of my kingship. Everyone today gets a free Monster energy drink. Do with that what you will. Okay. I'm back. What are we doing? Oh, Wise Disciple. We're doing Wise Disciple. That's what we're doing. Woo. Okay. I think it was that video. Is it this video? Yeah, it's this video. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of good night. So here we go.
Alex O'Connor presses Cliff and Stuart Connectly on the real message of Job. O'Connor says Job is about squashing intellectual questions. Connectly says it's about the fairness of God. But wait a second. Who's right, though? The atheist or the Christian?
Neither.
We're about to find out. But first, welcome back to Wise Disciple. My name is Nate, and I'm helping you become the effective Christian that you were meant to be, which entails understanding what the book of Job is really saying to us. Make sure to like, sub, and share this one around, but only if it gets you thinking, all right? We're going to get right into it. Here we go.
How suspicious are you of something like Christianity insofar as it does seem to answer something like existential dread? In the way that you say, look, if you don't believe in God, then it ends at death. And when you suffer, your suffering is meaningless. Whereas if you become a Christian, it fills you with meaning, it fills you with purpose. It sort of...
No, that is not what Christianity does.
Brings you sort of self-assurance that life is still worth living. And I think to myself, okay, like, is the problem of evil a response to Christianity? Or is Christianity a response to the problem of evil? Are there a bunch of people suffering, unsure of their existence? They don't know why they're here. They don't know why they suffer. They don't know why good people suffer. And
Christianity doesn't free you from human suffering or from mortal death. It promises you immortal life, but a life that has nothing to do with this mortal life.
bad people don't. And so here's a story we can tell ourselves, which will help us overcome that. And there are two theses here. One is that that's because it's true, and this is how the world is supposed to be. And one is that, well, it's because of all of the suffering and the meaning.
Also, Job is a story that comes from other ancient sources. Assuming that it is one of the older stories, which I know some of the biblical critical scholars like to disagree with, but let's assume it's one of the older stories and that it was imported into the Hebrew Bible from other cultures. There's a reason why it survived multiple iterations until it got to the version that we have.
Meaninglessness that people have created the story of Christianity to overcome it. I mean, I'm always, my suspicion of a position almost exactly correlates with how convenient it is, either spiritually, politically. And in this case, it seems like Christianity is like the ultimate spiritual convenience, given the world we find ourselves in. I mean, does that trouble you at all?
So a couple of things here. First, I mean, I immediately recognize a move here that I do not believe it's manipulative. It could be. I just don't think it is. But it's purely a move that provides advantage to folks should they choose to do this kind of thing on the debate stage. And so I would be remiss if I did not point this out. So what I'm talking about is when O'Connor sets up his question in a very lengthy and, again, advantageous way, you know? If he were on the debate stage and doing this, I would call this laying a framework, right? Have you heard me talk about this before? And he's laying this particular framework in such a manner that he's forcing both of his interlocutors here, both Connectleys, to do one of two things. Either they're going to adopt his framework and then they're going to struggle to answer this question, or they're going to reject his framework and, you know, kind of perhaps sidestep it like Neo in the Matrix, and then further their own point. But this idea that, did you hear what he said? Well, Christianity is incredibly convenient with regard to the venture of suffering and pain. It seems like a suspiciously convenient story to tell in this regard. So then, is the problem of evil a response to Christianity, or is Christianity a response to the problem of evil? Can you see?
I would say that Christianity is a response to the problem of evil, but it's not the necessary response to the problem of evil. Problem of evil is a philosophical answer problem that came up through debates with Christianity, but it has nothing to do with why Christianity exists.
See how, through framing it like that O'Connor is limiting the Christians here and how they respond? By the way, the answer is neither. Okay? The problem of evil as a philosophical issue that humanity has wrestled with for millennia would exist whether Christianity was around.
No, the problem of evil comes later after Christianity is already invented in a philosophical sense. These are philosophical frameworks that come after the Bible.
Or not. And also, Christianity cannot be reduced down to some kind of response to the problem of evil. I mean, that's hardly the only thing it is. If you want to say that Christianity is a response to something, then okay, it's a response to the person and teaching of Jesus Christ, who, by the way, is the personal fulfillment of the teaching and promises of Tanakh.
Well, except that no Jewish person believes that, and no biblical scholar of any merit believes that either. So you got a problem there.
Or the Old Testament. So let's see if the Connectleys adopt O'Connor's framework here or reject it.
One of the reasons I respect Siddhartha Gautama Buddha is because he struggled through the problem of suffering. And I respect that highly. But his conclusion I find to be totally inadequate. Suffering's an illusion. Are you kidding me? No, suffering is not an illusion. Suffering is something that every single one of us is going to experience. And that is why I'm so grateful for the biblical worldview that says God created and he did a good job in Genesis chapter 1, but then the world was cursed. The world got unhinged.
It seems better or it seems stable?
And suffering and chaos and evil and injustice entered the
Hey,
experience
Thomas.
of humankind as a result of human rebellion against God. And then it's fascinating to watch different parts of the Bible address the issue of suffering. And one of my favorites is the book of Job. And I think one of the main points of Job is life is unfair, God is fair, don't get the two mixed up. Life is unfair, God is fair, don't.
No, God's just. Fairness has nothing to do with it. God plays favorites. It's not about fairness. It's really not about fairness. Cliff is wrong. He's a child. He's a child looking at God and trying to understand God and explain God through a child's eyes. Cliff has no idea.
Don't wave your fist in God's face when you suffer.
Is that the main message?
No.
Is that the big idea coming out of the book of Job?
No.
That's the question.
Job is about submission and about trusting God above all things. That's what Job is about. Submission to God and trusting God above all things.
By the way, what do you think? We're live right now. Have you done a study of Job? What were your conclusions? Let me know in the comments. I'm taking a look at them as we do this video, because we're going to get into all of this in just a moment. Connectly says that the point is life is unfair. God is fair, so don't get the two mixed up. Just so you understand where my mind is at, I don't think that's the message of Job. But we'll get there, so stick with me.
Because it's not God's fault. It's the unfairness of life that is smacking the living daylights out of you. And then when you get to Christ, you see that God is a suffering God who becomes a human being, and life kicked his teeth in, no question about it. And he suffered, and then he bled and died on a cross. And I think right at that point, you're confronted by one of the most amazing things of God's character, which is his humility. He humbles himself, becomes a human being, suffers in order to provide the ultimate solution for suffering, forgiveness, and eternal life. And then when you get to the book of Revelation at the end of the Bible, you've got in Revelation 21:4, he will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there'll be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order has been wiped away. Behold, all things have become new. And that is the hope that we have as followers of Christ, that Jesus will return one day. There'll be a day of judgment, to heaven and a hell. We will receive new resurrection bodies to live for eternity with God in heaven.
So, by the way, I haven't seen this whole video, so I'm not sure how this is going to go with O'Connor, but I doubt he'll be satisfied with that answer. And let me go ahead and get in front of this. I think it's because there was not an opportunity to step back a little bit and maybe investigate some of the assumptions going into this discussion. Okay, I saw the very beginning of this interview. I mean, we're only about 10 minutes in, and it just seemed like O'Connor was eager to jump right into the deep end of the pool. You know what I mean? But no time was given to investigate what some of the presuppositions are for both parties.
We're going to go 30 minutes on this one. And we're going to go 30 minutes on the base camp one. We're going to have it a short night because I got to work in the morning.
You know, what is O'Connor assuming coming into the discussion about, say, the meaning or the purpose of life, right? Because I suppose that whatever his answer is, it's going to entail avoiding suffering altogether. You know what I mean? And if avoidance of suffering is part and parcel of your worldview, well then...
No, it's the acceptance of suffering. The Buddha got a lot more right than Cliff is giving him credit for.
Of course, the book of Job and other parts of the Bible are going to be extremely difficult to read.
I'm going to see what I can do on my end probably tomorrow. I'll disconnect all my equipment and replug it in. I had a big update on my computer. That might be what's going on. I don't think so, but that could be it. But I'll do that tomorrow.
Read. But if you can let go of your Western individualistic assumptions and try to see the Bible from an Eastern or even a Middle Eastern view, well, then you're already beginning with pain and suffering as a real feature of your regular experience. You know what I mean? Like, so in other words, suffering is not something that you avoid. It's something that...
I don't know what movie it is. I'm looking at this guy. And there's a movie with Dean Cain. Dean Cain's Mexican, for those that don't know. And he's with Denzel Washington, and he's a very young-looking Dean Cain. And he looks like a badass, and he kind of looks like he looks in this one. Not that he looks badass, but you know what I mean. Like he's kind of got that look going on. Yeah. Anyone knows what that movie is? Dean Cain and Denzel Washington in the same movie where Dean Cain's, I guess, like a womanizer. Let me know.
You need to do well. Can you already see the difference here? That's where a lot of this clash exists. It's because Christianity doesn't want you to avoid suffering. It wants you to walk through suffering.
Hey, Ad Astra.
well.
Hey, Thomas.
As a matter of fact, the Christian life is an invitation to suffering. What did Bonhoeffer say? When Christ calls a man, he bids him to come and die, right? So I think it would be wise to spend some time identifying and unpacking some of the assumptions going into this discussion, or else these gentlemen, they won't be able to have as productive a conversation that they could have.
Which means if my secular atheist friend and
So I watched the whole thing a while back. I don't know, it was a few days ago or a week ago, and Cliff came off less than bumbling fool. He really did. His assistant or his stepson, whoever it is, didn't help things at all. And Alex O'Connor was hitting them out of the park like he was doing warm-up practice at batting cages. It was not good. It didn't intellectually challenge Alex at all. I don't think it challenged the audience listening to this at all, because everyone who would be interested in this video has already watched a ton of apologetics. So Cliff doing his, I'm just a regular guy, I happen to be a scholar, but I know these things from faith. You know, the Bible's true because it's the Bible, you know, that kind of stuff does not work here. And every once in a while in this interview, he would break out of that mold and that he would start to give a real answer, but then he'd fall right back into fundamentalism, which was disappointing.
I are standing on either sides of the bed where the little babies or young child is lying, whose body's being shredded by some weird, grotesque disease. The question is there a solution? And if my atheist secular friend is going to be honest, there is no solution. Hunk of primordial slime evolved to a higher order is falling apart. Tough luck, kid. That's just fate, destiny, chance.
No, that's an incorrect assumption and idea of what atheism is. In fact, if you're a true atheist, if you're a true humanist on top of that, you would think there definitely is, if you're a humanist in general, you think there's definitely a solution, and it's in the human mind. The human mind can conquer anything. If you're just simply a secular atheist, well then, depending on what philosophical leaning you have, for instance, if you believe in science, you're going to go towards science for the answer. If you believe in philosophy, you can go to philosophy for the answer. So, Cliff, you are wrong. Just absolutely 100% wrong. You don't know anything about anything outside of the Bible. And even the stuff you think you know about the Bible, I have 5 scholars on my left who I like, who will tell you everything you believe about the Bible is wrong. And they can back it up with facts and data and direct biblical translations. So I'm sorry, man. You got nothing. You're standing on nothing. You have incorrect assumptions about a book that you don't understand, about a faith you don't understand, about a God you don't know or understand properly. Now, I want you to be a Catholic. I do. I want you to know the true faith. Come be a Catholic. Learn the true faith. Learn some true dogma. But that doesn't make you believe in God. God, if he favors you, if he loves you, he's there with you right now. You know that, I know that, so that's not even what we're talking about. Your faith is a false faith based on a false religion called Protestantism, called whatever denomination you're a part of. You believe in sola scriptura and ultimately ultra-Bible literalism. You don't believe in evolution, and you believe that everything in the Bible is what it is because the Bible says so, without any facts to prove it. So you would believe the Bible is true, even if every single fact in the world says it's not true, which means you're not a reliable person to defend the Bible. If the Bible can never be disproven, then you saying that it's true means nothing. You have no standard, no basis, no anything to stand on. Now, that doesn't mean that someone like Pope Benedict or Pope John Paul II is better than you because they're better theologians. No, they're better than you because they accept facts and science, and when they defend the Bible with facts and science. They go outside of the Bible to prove the Bible. They're not worried about whether or not this is historical and this is polemic. They don't care about that. They just need the Bible to be true. They don't need the Bible to be a literalist nightmare. They don't need the Bible to be 77 books that are, or 72 books or 66 books, whatever it is you guys have, that's completely reliant on the same writer. No, they can believe in inspiration and understand that each book is written by a different author. Each book goes through a process of expansion, redaction, contraction, all the way until you get to the final version. Goes through a lot of development. They can accept all of that. You are trying to hold onto a version of the Bible that the Bible itself is not claiming to be. And you're adding in a ton of dogma and saying that it has to be from the Bible because you can't accept extra biblical sources.
But a follower of Christ will walk the other side of the bed and will
You have a definition of hell and Satan and the devil that doesn't exist in the Bible.
hold that child's hand and seek to comfort that child. But in Jesus Christ, we have a suffering God who provides the ultimate solution for suffering and death, eternal life in heaven.
So I feel like in so many words, you're saying the same thing as me, but concluding
Alex O'Connor is better educated on the Bible than Cliffy.
something different. That is like, the atheist also wants to comfort that child. They also want to, but they find themselves unable to do so
And he has a better understanding of humanity.
because they know that it is all meaningless, that it is all just molecules in motion, that suffering has no redemption or justification.
Well, be careful, because if
No, because if nothing matters, then everything matters. If this is the only moment you have in existence, then everything you do matters because this is the only thing you have. And if you can't understand that, wise disciple, then you shouldn't be talking to atheists. You should go back to talking to the choir and go back to your church that you left. Go teach a sermon to a group of choir singers.
if the implicit sort of suggestion is that that's what the Christian also believes, and that's not true. So, again, You see how the frame
No, you don't see how your version of reality is not Alex's version of reality. He doesn't see things the way that you do. In fact, most atheists don't. They're not scared of going to hell because they don't believe there is a hell. They're not scared of a God judging them because they don't believe there is a God. They're not scared of having their soul have eternal torment because they don't believe there's a soul. That doesn't mean they don't believe in morality. They do. That doesn't mean they don't believe in right and wrong. They do. That doesn't mean that they're amoral or immoral. They aren't. You are just limited by a simple precept. Oh, the Bible is true and therefore everything else is false. Instead of understanding degrees of truth, which is we're all looking at the same data and coming to different conclusions.
framing of the discussion becomes an
And
important
the more data you have, the more easy it is to have more conclusions.
feature of this back and forth. And for those in the audience who are not aware of this kind of a thing, they're going to side with whoever lays a better framework in their minds. As of this recording, I think this video has almost 1 million views. So it really comes down to the way that this discussion is being framed by both parties. You know, I'm not saying that Connectly is not doing that either, but O'Connor certainly is doing this very, very astutely and very well, right? Connectly,
If you're an apologist today, stop reading apologetics right now and go read some biblical scholarship. Get out of the world of apologetics. If you want to engage in apologetics, get out of the world of apologetics. Stop smelling your own farts. And excuse the way I'm going to word this, because I know some people don't like bad words, but get out of the circle jerk. You just have to.
by the way, he's not saying
Hi, Ad Astra.
what O'Connor is suggesting coming from the atheist side. In other words, in the world where God exists, nothing is meaningless, in the Christian scheme of things. And therefore, nothing is wasted, not even your suffering.
And so then you say, well, hold on, if you're a believer in Christ, that problem goes away. And I go, yeah, that sounds pretty good. It almost sounds too good to be true. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's so convenient. It's so brilliant at overcoming the most fundamental, deepest existential problems of humanity that
I can't get into it, but Ad Astra, I just had a conversation with my wife about this. She's asking me, it's been so hard. Why don't you want a divorce? Like, we talked about separating earlier this year. We're now about to reconnect, and it's going to cost you a lot. It's going to cost you a lot to sacrifice to come here, to be with me, to do what I want you to do. Why are you doing this? That's what my wife asked me. She's like, why? Like, I'm not worth it. Her words, she's like, she's not worth it. And I'm like, you are worth it. To me, you're worth everything. Everything that I'm going to do, everything that I have done, you're worth it. You matter to me. And this is a Catholic talking to an atheist. Yes, husband and wife, but it's a Catholic talking to an atheist. And she's putting everything together, and she's having a conversation that I had maybe years ago with a friend of mine, and she's having it with me. And she's trying to figure out, what the math is. She's like, how can it be worth all of the stuff you're going through, the stuff you're going through with your dad and all this stuff? And I'm like, I have faith. I'm not worried about it. I am legitimately not worried about it. I'm more concerned about my cat who's sick. I'm more concerned about how the person's going to treat my dad, the person who's going to stay with my dad, how they're going to treat him. I'm more concerned about that than I am about me and you working out. Me going over there, me going to be with you, me bringing you back, us fighting with the U.S. government for my stepson's citizenship, all of that doesn't mean anything to me. Because at the end, I chose you and you chose me. And that's how it is. We'll go through every step of the process to get our marriage recognized by the church. And we'll go through it over and over and over again. We'll go through every step of the process to get our son to be a United States citizen. And we'll go through it over and over and over again, no matter how many times it gets hard. I quit my job. I ran out of money. When I had all the money that you thought would make things better, you were like, oh, we're still broke. Now I actually am broke, and I'm still paying my bills. Like, you got to calm down. You got to bring it down. You got to have some faith, You just got to move forward. And she doesn't get it. And that's the conversation you got to have with Alex O'Connor. You got to have the conversation of a husband to a wife. When the wife is saying, I don't get it. How do you have faith? How are you moving forward with this, knowing how hard it's been already? That's the conversation that Cliff should be having with Alex O'Connor when it comes to Job, when it comes to the problem of suffering. But that's not the conversation. Instead, he's trying to beat him over the head intellectually. Alex O'Connor is smarter than Cliff. Alex has a better knowledge base. He has better references. He has a better education than Cliff has. Trying to intellectually dominate Alex is not only foolish, but it makes us look stupid, especially when you're arguing things like evolution didn't happen.
That it sort of garners some suspicion. I mean, what is the message of the Book of Job? Like, well, who the hell are you to ask questions? You know, don't even go there.
Just to be very clear, Alex doesn't believe a Job existed. He thinks it's literature. I, by the way, think the Bible is literature, so I'm not offended here. But Cliff is a literalist. He thinks there is a real Job that talked to God legitimately, literally. Now, as a Catholic, I get to have both and. I get to say, yeah, it's a literary trope, but there is a guy that was based on that this probably happened to. And it might not be the version of the story that we have, but there's something that happened and he got to talk to God, and that's why the story survived and the Holy Spirit, kept the story around. That's fine. I'm a Catholic. That's fine. But when talking to Alex O'Connor, I'm not going to say, well, the Pope and the Magisterium tells me this is true, therefore it's true. Now listen to me. What does that do? That does nothing. That doesn't convince Alex of anything. If anything, it tells him that the Catholic Church is crazy. So no, this idea of, the Bible's true, therefore because the Bible says it, this is how it is not going to convince anyone listening to this of anything.
Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Like
That doesn't come till later.
no, like he allows.
It's okay to ask, but then he gets shamed because he's asking too much, it seems.
Yeah. Well,
No.
I'm interested in what
No.
perhaps we can do a sort of Job exegesis. But you see what I'm saying about the convenience thing, right? Because
Perhaps we will.
There's 2 books in the Bible that I want to do before I wrap up this channel, assuming everything still goes, assuming I still have a channel. I want to do the book of Revelation. I tried once or twice in the past to do it, and nobody watched. And I want to do the book of Job. I have a lot of study material on Job. I have a lot of study material on the book of Revelation. I would love to do a read through or read along with Job and with the book of Revelation. I really would. Anybody interested in doing a Bible study with me like that? Let me know. If we can get at least 20 people. I mean, if we can get 100 or 1,000, that'd be great. But if we can get at least 20, I would do it.
Well, I mean, I don't know how in depth we can get into Job, but we can certainly investigate the message of the book of Job, because
Okay, we're gonna go 3 more minutes and then switch to the other video.
here it seems we have an alternative interpretation of Job from O'Connor. So again, remember, Knechtle said that the message of Job is that life is unfair, but God is fair. O'Connor appears to be suggesting that Job is really about squashing intellectual discovery, intellectual questions. Stop asking those pesky questions because how dare you, right? But is that the message of Job?
Well, to be fair, that's what this guy implicated. That's not really what Alex implicated. So you're falsely implicating Alex here. Alex
would
is
say
mostly
no.
just running with it.
everything you've just said, where you've
Yes.
said, well, look, we live in a world and suffering is real. Yes, I agree. And like, as an atheist, you're going to look at that and you're going to go, this is all meaningless. Yes, I agree. And Christianity allows you to say it's not. Yes, I agree. But, like, so would a great many beliefs that I could probably invent. They wouldn't be as comprehensive or impressive as the Christian worldview, for sure.
Right.
But the very fact that it serves that purpose makes me suspicious as to its, its psychological origin. You know
You
what I
bet.
mean?
Yeah, it's the opium of the masses. That's the problem that Alex is presenting to them, and I don't think Cliff hits it out of the park.
But when you love and when you are loved, it's almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
When you experience joy, real joy, that's not based on the circumstances of life, but that goes far deeper than that, it's almost too good to be true. You're right. And hope for a future that doesn't end in the grave, where there's more to us than just becoming fertilizer. Instead, we're human beings created to enjoy God for eternity, and God has put eternity in our hearts, and that's why we have this longing for eternal life. Yeah, maybe it is too good to be true. And that's why a careful study of the Gospels, I think, is so important to find out, did Jesus really rise from the dead or not?
Yeah.
Is this just a pipe dream, or is there some substance to this?
Well,
That
You can't find out whether or not the Gospels are true or not by reading the Gospels. That's just it, man. You can't. That's not how things work. You might as well just be a Mormon then and say that because of the feeling in your bosom. The Mormon Book of Mormon's true, regardless of science and fact and history. Regardless that there's no Native American tribes that match any of this description. It's true. You might as well just be a Mormon, man. Get
A
that
great
grin
response.
off your face.
in light of how
That's a
O'Connor
shit-eating grin.
is, again, framing this discussion. So Connectly says, well, if it's too good to be true, so what? You know, isn't that how love feels? It feels amazing. You know, it feels like a fairy tale, you know, and that is, I mean, while that's a great response,
No, it's not.
I would still argue that the better one would be to reject the framing of the question and seek to clarify some of the assumptions going into this discussion in the first place.
I kind of agree with that. All right, let's move on to base camp because we're only going to do an hour tonight.
It's bad. I don't like it.
Hello, Simone. I'm excited to be here with you today. Today we are going to be talking about the platform Blue Sky, which is
I recently got myself a Blue Sky account. The only real reason why is because I like following the comic book industry, and most of the comic book people are progressive lefty types, and they went over to Blue Sky, so I followed them because I want to know what's going on with the comic books. That's it. I'm still on Twitter, or X, or whatever you want to call it.
a competitor-ish to Twitter. It was actually started by Twitter. We'll get into this in a second.
Wait.
It was started by-
No.
Yeah, it was started and owned by the Twitter Corporation, but it's like it's not a nonprofit. It's like some weird type of like for whatever company. Look,
Oh,
we don't
benefit
need to get
corporation.
into Blue Sky right now. First, I want to get into the fact that I love that leftists are fleeing from Twitter. I have seen some great memes about this. I want to start with one right here that uniquely, and it is the personification of X saying, "What's wrong, user? You gonna cry? You gonna shit your pants?" And I'm like, you know what? And I want to talk about this because it has hugely deleterious psychological consequences to the individuals who are doing this. This is not a mentally healthy thing to do. And let's go over some more memes before we go further here.
Okay.
So next here we have Mastodon, X, and Threads kicking at
I would not put Threads in there, but okay.
someone and laughing at them. And then they go to Blue
I don't think Threads allows bullying or anything like that.
Sky, which I think shows how
Wait,
quickly they
Mastodon? It's seen as bullying? I
Mastodon
thought
and
everyone just had their
Threads.
own little safe servers.
It doesn't work. They'll never be satisfied with anything. That's the thing. They wanted to be able to lord their power over conservatives. They didn't want to just be lording their power over each
Oh,
other.
so yeah. Okay.
And they when they go to Mastodon, well, who can they pick on but only other progressives? And so they go on other progressives, pick on them. And they know that they're going to be picked on soon with it. They're all going to leave Blue Sky soon. I mean, this is I love all the progressives. Look at all the numbers that are leaving. We'll get into the numbers. And I'm like, well, the numbers really aren't that big, and they're not bigger than the numbers that went to Mastodon. So I don't know why you think it's going to work this.
Well, continual bleed off, though, would be a problem, except for the fact that you can have multiple accounts. So I have multiple social medias. So just because someone's on Blue Sky doesn't mean they're not on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it.
time, but have fun.
No, X or Twitter becomes uncool the moment it becomes, the grandparents' app. Facebook is no longer cool. Facebook really should be dead. The fact that there's still people in the UK who are going to jail for posting on Facebook is just laughably sad. Not only is it tragic because they shouldn't be going to jail anyway for tweeting something or posting a meme, but they definitely shouldn't be on Facebook anymore. It's not a relevant app.
Turns out what you hate
It's like being on
is
MySpace.
each other. You wanted an environment where you could bully
I
someone
mean,
who
technically, I still have a Tumblr, so really, who am I to talk? But I don't post in there anymore.
couldn't protect themselves.
Yeah.
And now you're in an environment where you're the one being bullied.
They just have themselves to eat. Yeah, it is.
And I love, when many people are talking, and I actually think that this is really true about this. It's a Rick and Morty meme here where Morty's saying, "What shit is that?" And then Rick says, it's a new competitor to X. It lets people post pictures and videos and write bits of text marketed as some kind of Twitter thing as an alternative to that asshole Elon Musk platform. And then Morty says, that's just Instagram with extra steps. And, that's effing true. By the way, I don't think Elon's an asshole. Elon's awesome. But that is true. And we've mentioned this on other things. More people will increasingly realize, as Elon is increasingly entering the public mind share, that he might be more awesome than you thought he was. Anyway, here I'm going to read a post by Richard Hanania, which I thought was really awesome on this particular topic. The left seems demoralized. Without Twitter, they're all just crying into the void. There's no coordinated mechanism for them to encourage each other and respond to events. Fragmented media landscape hurts the mainstream media. The left has lost their power. Do you want me to go into the statistics around Blue Sky before we talk more about it?
Yeah. I'm also like, do you have details on how they were founded? Because why would Twitter create a competitor to itself?
They did, though, because they were a giant bureaucratic company that was idiotic. But yes, essentially somebody, I think it was one of the leadership team at Twitter, was like, we need to create, and I'll add more in post. Blue Sky began in 2019 as a research initiative at Twitter, led by then CEO Jack Dorsey. The project was initially funded by Twitter for $13 million to begin development. However, Blue Sky was incorporated as an independent company called Blue Sky Social in October 2021. It is a public benefit corporation. The reason for Twitter creating a competitor to itself was because it was likely never meant to be spin out. I think it was spin out with the knowledge of a potential acquisition on hand. So I suspect there's going to be lawsuits around this in the near future. In addition to that, the goal was to create something that was slightly more decentralized than the way Twitter was operated. However, now that Blue Sky is running as essentially a Twitter clone and competitor, it is all centralized.
One of the reasons I don't trust their research is because they post almost every single day, and that doesn't give you enough time to do research unless they have a huge team behind them, unless they're making millions of dollars from these videos, which, judging by their views, they're not. It makes me kind of suspect of some of their claims just because there's just not enough time to do the amount of research on the amount of topics that they do. If they were doing one show a week or one show a month, that'd be a different story. But doing one show every day, there's no way they're able to do all of this research and do it accurately. Not without a huge team. And that would be a lot of money.
What I mean by that is it's technically a decentralized architecture.
I mean, for instance, Metatron has a small team, and that still takes him about a month or so to get a really good video together, and sometimes 2 months if he wants to have it hit really hard.
That is all being controlled by one team and ran on one server, making it functionally not.
When I used to do, when my channel was more popular and I used to do a ton of research, it would take me a month per video for research. And just in all honesty, so I had to backlog my stuff. And the only reason I stopped doing that is because eventually the flash drive that I had all my stuff wiped out, including all my Quran videos. So yeah, no, like that's why I stopped doing that amount of research, because it was heartbreaking to do that much research and to have the video only perform with 100 views, or to have it disappear after recording it, like, stuff like that would happen. And so yeah, that's why I stopped doing that amount of research.
Decentralized at all.
I see. Okay.
By the way, they call their tweets skeets.
Skeets. Okay.
Skeets. All right, so since its launch, Blue Sky has experienced significant growth. Initially available through an invite-only beta in 2023, it opened to the public in 2024 and has rapidly gained users, surpassing 20 million by November 2024. The platform's growth has been fueled partially by dissatisfaction with changes on X under Elon Musk's ownership. However, this represents a significant increase. So if you're talking about like the users this year, they have grown by 13 million users since October 2024. But remember, they only recently launched before that. The platform added 1 million users per day for 8 consecutive days in November. As of 2024, X, formerly Twitter, has a substantial user base. Specifically, so when people are like, oh, Blue Sky is so big, right? They've got 20 million users. X has 335.7 million users.
Okay, wow.
But the bigger problem comes in their active users, okay? Because Blue Sky's been kind of fudging their active users. When Twitter says it has 335.7 million active monthly users, what is its active daily users? The active daily users on X is 237.8 million. The active daily users on Blue Sky right now, at its absolute height, is 3.5 million. And that's a 300% increase since Election Day. That
Wow,
meant before
okay.
Election Day, it was at around 1
That's a
million active users
quiet
daily,
backwater.
while Twitter was 237.8 million active users.
Wow. Okay.
Basically, Blue Sky is completely irrelevant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is an argument to be made. I don't think this is the case with Blue Sky, but there's an argument to be made that very small social networks that have the right people on them, like very high agency people,
The way that they do their jumps is interesting because her speech will still be going, but you can see the jump cut over here, which makes me wonder if they film these things separately and then put them together. Like, what's going on there?
in the world, live players by Sam Berge's definition, are incredibly meaningful and are the only networks that matter. But this is not that. This is
No,
not that.
Blue Sky is like an
Like,
automatic
did you see that right there? There was a jump right there.
lefty opinion generator. And so I tried to like reload the front page a few times to one, find out what type of reach you get if you're a famous person on Blue Sky, and two, understand like, okay, what type of things are they talking about on Blue Sky? So I'll put here two random front pages I got. The first was the top post on Blue Sky at the time was Mark Cuban saying, remember, new users are coming on daily, unsure of engagement. The more posts you like and reply to, the stronger the platform becomes, ! So Mark Cuban is shilling Blue Sky. Did he like become like Shadow Elon Musk, like the dark, pathetic version of him? Because he sided with the lefties and Elon Musk actually had the balls to side was the side that was standing
That
for
is
justice and love.
Pretty funny. Yeah. Oh, dear.
No, I think that's what happened. Is he thought he was doing the right thing, and initially he historically has been somewhat based, at least, but now he's sort of stuck in lefty sphere and being like discount Elon Musk, and so he is, and you'll see him a lot. Like when I look at Blue Sky, he's a lot the top poster. He's sort of like to Twitter, where you see Elon's tweets all the times, and you're like, I did not ask for this. He has Blue Sky's version of Elon Musk tweets. And it's like sad shilling. And then what's the one under that? It's under Grateful Deadpool. And it goes, this needs to be said aloud and often. Can I tell you a secret? I don't care if there are undocumented immigrants in this country. I think it's a non-issue. Without social security numbers, they're not getting the welfare people claim they're getting. And the vast majority of them are normal people trying to live a better life. By the way, this isn't true. There are many ways you can get government assistance without a social security number. A lot of illegal aliens are getting government assistance, but this person's an idiot.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. Eat the cat.
The Springfield, Ohio Police Department has debunked this very bizarre and very hateful.
Eat the cat. Eat the cat. They're eating the dogs.
No eating dog and cats.
Eat the cat. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. Eat the cat. Eat the cat.
Actually, one thing that I heard recently, read, is that the UN has been giving prepaid debit cards to many migrants and, what's the word for people fleeing countries? Refugees to move prepaid debit cards to come to the United
States.
States.
Or the US?
No, the UN, the United Nations. So that is using some taxpayer dollars from people in the US because the US supports the United Nations. So yeah, there's a lot of different forms of aid that people receive, and it's not necessarily directly from the U.S. government, but it can be.
Yeah, so whenever they say that NATO or UN is doing something, realize that's also our tax money. Like the U.S. funds a lot of stuff.
From U.S. taxpayers, nonetheless.
Yeah, no, it's just ridiculous. And so, by the way, like, how many likes are these things getting, right? So with the top one on the platforms right now, you're looking at 3.6K likes and 12.3K likes.
Like when our tanks go somewhere, understand that we still paid for those tanks. It doesn't matter if another country is using them. Like we still made the tank. We said that our taxes still went into its construction and production.
Basically, no one is seeing this shit. Okay, and what else? Because I love that people are like, oh no, it's not just lefty nonsense and like self-congratulatory. All right, here's another one. Okay, what happened the next time I loaded it, right? It's a meme of scientists and a huge crowd of scientists and somebody saying, yes, you all are wrong. And then it says a man who saw a YouTube video. And it's like, well, if you understand how much the scientific community is held hostage by the mimetic virus, you would be like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I know lots of scientists who don't feel comfortable saying anything against the virus.
I mean, just look at what happened to Neil deGrasse Tyson this weekend on Bill Maher. So, yeah.
And then, okay, what's the next one? Well, the next one on the platform is a guy saying, Tim Walt need a podcast to help get us through the next 4 years. Do you agree? And then the next is an Onion article, which appears on there all the time. So, no, it is just lefty slop. And it's something you would only go to if you only wanted lefty slop.
Well, they need a safe space.
Safe space.
Nope. We're not doing any music.
Why would you not want your information scraped for AI? AI is going to be the dominant player in human civilization going forwards. The stuff created by AI that is going to be counter-scraped by other AI is the stuff that the foundations of our descendants millions of years from now is going to be based on. You are lucky that you get the chance to conceivably possibly contribute to stuff that AI is going to scrape.
Hold on, though. You're telling me the Blue Sky doesn't allow this, right?
No,
They don't allow AI scraping, because then that's a feature, not a bug. That means that like a leftist, like
No, but so Blue Sky itself isn't built.
Okay, we're not going to worry about that right now. Let's go to the other video from them. Bop, bada, bop, bop, bop. Boop.
Must have been more than a year ago. And I've noticed some. Hello, Simone. I'm excited to be talking to you today. Today, I wanted to deep dive on one
15 more minutes and then we're out.
subject that has been something that has come up in other things that we have talked about, but we've never really done a deep dive on it. And I've noticed some common misconceptions people have around this, which is I think that everybody broadly knows that in the 90s, big business was predominantly right wing. If you were, we always use like the Jack Donaghy stereotype here. If you were a big business guy, you were a right wing guy. If you were a big corporate guy at like
right wing is kind of the wrong word, but it would be more conservative. It was predominantly conservative. Everything was, even Disney, like the most progressive thing you can think of. It was a conservative company in the 80s, especially in the 80s and early 90s as well.
Whether it's BlackRock or whether it's, McKinsey, the stereotype is that you would be right wing. Today, the stereotype is that you'd be extremely left wing. The core Republican Party used to be made up of an alliance of a theocratic faction in the United States and a big.
Again, I don't think left wing is the right way to put it. I would say progressive. So originally, to be a great company, to be in charge of stuff, you need to be conservative, whether it's entertainment or anything else. It had to be conservative. Hence, even comic books had conservative statements, conservative messaging. Now it's become progressive, although with the advent of Trump and the new Trumpism, who knows? Who knows what the next 4 years or 16 years is going to entail?
Big business faction, and it broke apart, making way for the new right alliance, with big business departing the alliance in the early 2000s. Now, the question is why? And the answer that I have always given historically is that this happened because the mimetic virus that we call the urban monoculture, some people may call it wokeism, whatever you want to call it, spreads better and faster within bureaucracies.
Yeah.
Wokeism as the urban monoculture. Interesting definition change there.
This is a part of it.
I don't know if I agree with that, but it's an interesting choice to change that definition.
But I don't think it's everything.
Okay.
Or an
Secondly,
interesting definition. An interesting choice of definition. I'm now just rambling.
I think a core mistake that a lot of people make when they're looking at this is to assume, and I've heard this from so many people, that, well, it's natural that big business was a Republican-aligned party in the 90s because it wanted lower tax rates.
By the way, this audience has gone up and down, fluctuated a bit, but let's assume that there's some shadow stuff going on and some incognito stuff going on. If you're watching this, could you please also watch yesterday's live stream? It only got 4 views, and it was an actually good show. It was Shoe on Head. It was Adam and Stitch. It was good. It was entertaining. It was funny. Could you please go watch yesterday's live stream? It was a good stream. I don't know why it got throttled, but it did. So please help me out and comment like crazy on that video.
Wanted less regulation.
On that stream.
It wanted all of that stuff. And this is a very naive understanding of what businesses actually care about, especially large businesses. It is actually just as perplexing that big businesses align themselves with the right in the 90s as big business aligning themselves with woke is today. Because generally, big businesses...
Again, I don't think saying the right is the correct thing. I just call it conservative. It was conservative.
...prefer a large amount of regulations and taxes. And
it wasn't even social conservatism. It was economic conservatism.
Barriers to entry. There is a reason why Sam Altman is going around trying to get everybody terrified of AI so that you can get additional AI regulations, because he knows no matter how big the regulations are, they'll never be enough to shut down OpenAI, but they may prevent his...
Remember, just go back to see who was asking for censorship back in the day. It was the Democrats, not the Republicans.
Competitors. Do you want to talk on this?
That's when I was a teenager.
Or go further?
No, keep going. This resonates though.
And so I was thinking about this, and I was talking to someone about this, and I was saying, well, here's a really interesting thing. When I look at what the Democratic Party represents today, an alliance of, and I always use the word urban monoculture, but if I change the definition, an interesting pattern emerges. It is an alliance of big business interests and the dominant cultural group in the United States whose primary interest is imposing its value system on other people. And then when I say that and I go back to the 90s, that was the alliance that existed as well.
Yeah.
It was big business, it was the dominant cultural group. So when we talk about the theocratic coalition that existed in the 90s, this was a group of individuals who are basically like, okay, where does Catholicism, Protestantism, Judaism, the main American
The quote unquote silent majority.
religious systems, Mormonism, where do their sort of moral shadows overlap? We're going to call this the Judeo-Christian tradition. And then
Again, it was the silent majority, or sometimes also called the moral majority, but it was the silent majority.
we are going to try to impose this on citizens through laws, through the school system, through other things like that. And that is, they were never as good at it as the urban monoculture was, but they definitely had the same gist of an idea. And I think, one, before we go into it,
Modern wokeism, which is already dying, and it's been dominant now since Obama. So it's been dominant now for like a good 15 years, but it's already dying. But let's assume that it's not just in its death throes. The previous way of looking at things was popular for a good 30 years. So you're talking about like from 1975 to like 2000 and I think it ended with 9/11. So 2001, and then we had like this weird period of like, are there rules? Are there not rules? For like a good 10 years.
this also helps highlight where we are so antagonistic to some people on the right. Where I think lay people, when they see us being antagonistic to these groups, they say that we are being antagonistic to groups that are just further right-leaning than ourselves. And I think that these are the same types of people who think that what happened is the right today is just the 90s Democrats, and that both parties have.
Honest truth, and I know he's shitting on it, but I think that a lot. A lot of what I'm seeing today is that the people who are in the right, who are the majority of the right today, are the old left, are the old Democratic. The Democratic right has now become the Republican left. That is very true. Regardless of what he's about to say, because he's going to shit on that, but that is very true. The old Democratic right has become the Republican left. That's 100% true, regardless of where he's about to go.
Have been moving to the left, when instead what I'd argue is no, what actually happened is the left today is the 90s theocrats. It's just we have a different dominant cultural group in this country, and the right today.
Yeah, wokeism became religion. So the way that it was the conservative, the moral majority, the silent minority, that is now wokeism. But it's the same group. It's still Democrats. It was the Democrats pushing for all that censorship shit in the 90s and the 2000s. It wasn't the Republicans. And now it's still the Democrats pushing for it. But now they're pushing it under the title of wokeism and progressivism. Their politics hasn't changed. They just simply relabeled it to something that seemed more swallowable, more acceptable. There's a word. It just seemed, more digestible to the people who they're feeding it to. They changed the words. They didn't change what they're doing.
As a fundamentally new party that doesn't really represent the axis.
They stand for
the
nothing.
political axis that existed
They
in
just
all
want to
of the
win.
90s.
Exactly.
And so when these people are doing their thing and they're like, oh, we want to impose like gay marriage bans or something like that, I'm like, well, you're just acting like the left from my perspective. You're trying to impose a cultural value system, which is why I think there's so much hostility to this sort of rhetoric within the modern right. But before we go further with this, I want to ask the question, why does big business constantly find itself on the same side as a dominant cultural group attempting to enforce its value system using the justice system and using laws within the country?
Well, because they have the money, right? And business goes where the money is, like sharks following blood.
Do they have the money, though? I don't know.
Okay, hold on, I'll be right back. Bathroom break. Sorry about that. I've been drinking a ton of water, so yeah. Okay, let's continue on.
Oh, if they ever really had the money. The
I don't know
theocratic
how
act-
you can't impose a policy upon other people without having deep pockets. Politicians don't listen to you if you don't have deep pockets.
I'm going to disagree.
Well, no, I mean, also think that, I think the major, huge political donors did go woke. So
I agree with that, but I don't think that that is why the politicians are following them. I think that when I look at the sort of imposition of woke culture on other people,
Yeah, so yesterday I was really pale. I should have realized my sugar was way too high because now I'm drinking plenty of water. I had a little cramp in my legs earlier today. I'm drinking plenty of water and the skin color is coming back. I should have realized that that my sugar was too high.
I think it was from a vocal minority. And
I bought cookies for my dad, and I ate the cookies. I should not have cookies in my house. This is all there is to it.
that the
I didn't eat all
wealthy-
the cookies, but I ate like 6 of them. I can eat one. I can eat one every 2 hours. And I can't do it like one every 2 hours, every 2 hours. I can just like one every 2 hours and no more than like 2 a day, something like that. So yeah, I know I'm an idiot.
ended up following it because they saw this vocal minority and saw them as a threat. And I think it's very similar to like the satanic panic of the 80s or the extremist.
I wanted Oreo cookies, so I got Oreo cookies. Which, if you think about it, that's actually double the cookie because they're two-sided and they have. It was a bad move. It was a bad move. And I even bought the small pack, like the 4-pack thing, where it's like you only get so many. But I ate that whole little vial of Oreo, all 6 of them, 4 of them, 6 of them. I don't know how many are in the little pack.
Evangelicals of the 90s, where they never really made up that large of a population. But if you had something like, a demon in a show or something like that, you had to be very careful about it, or anything that could be seen. We actually saw this with the Catholics. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Again, the moral majority, the silent minority. That's what they were called. I lived through this. This guy apparently is like at least 10 years younger than me because he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just referencing it.
But for a long time, Hollywood wouldn't make any movie that could be interpreted as anti-Catholic because the Catholics
Really?
were very, very good at vetoing movies. The organization I'm talking about here is the National Legion of Decency, but my timeline is a bit off. They were mostly prominent between the 1930s.
There we go. Okay. He admitted. I take it back. Sorry for shitting on you. You're correcting yourself right after I shitted on you, you're correcting yourself.
And 1960s, and they used the audience of 20 million Catholics who back during that time period would actually listen to what the church told them to do, which they don't so much anymore, which is largely why the council lost power, to boycott movies.
Yeah, but this also was like with the Comics Code and other stuff like that. There's a lot that happened that he's not really getting into here. Satanic panic. Basically, what happens is there'll be a period, like if you think about, we might call them dime store westerns or dime novels, and then religious people get upset, and so then they'll change the rules. Then will come. What's going on? I got a problem. What's going on? Are you all still in the room? I just got a ton of notifications that I had a bunch of dropped frame rates starting an hour ago, going all the way to 34 minutes ago. I just got them all right now. So if you guys are still in the room, let me know. Anyway, so basically it's like the pendulum swinging both ways. So then you get the movies. So then you get like a lot of, I can't think. You get noir and gothic novels come out, and then you have the Comics Code and the Movies Code come out to like counter that. And then you have the counterculture of the 70s and the 60s, and you get like NC-17 and X-rated movies that are mainstream. And then you have the sweep the other way. The majority says, no. So now it can't even be shown in private. And then the 90s comes and suddenly porn's allowed on the internet, and then the 2000s come and suddenly it's purity culture and everyone's wearing rings to show that they're virgins, even though they're full-grown adults. They're wearing promise rings. And then it swings back to, shit posting and Wild West YouTube and unregulated Reddit, unregulated 4chan, unregulated whatever else. And then it sweeps back the other way. And this is just the pendulum. This is the culture wars going back and forth. So don't be so shocked about this. This is not as drastic as Malcolm's making it out to be.
And they ended up influencing things
Or
like
as
the Hays
noticeable.
Code and
Notable.
most of the movies that were released.
And there was actually this chain of like movies made by Hollywood specifically to endear studios to the church. Like in one of them, the plot was something like a Catholic preacher was given a confession, but like that the guy was going to murder someone or like murder him, the preacher, and like he couldn't do anything about it because he was so moral and he had to follow, you know, these rules. And this was a common thing. And you might actually have noticed this, that Catholic preachers were disproportionately in media in the 80s and mid 90s. And you basically don't see them in media anymore because they weren't that big a faction of Americans.
So that their appearances were artificial. You are arguing.
Their appearances were artificial due to, and I'll look up in post some specific examples of this, but it was a specific union of Catholics that would boycott movies.
That's so interesting. I mean, that I suppose makes sense.
Which was,
So
I
it's
think,
more about who is strategically in power. Is that what you were saying is going on?
no, I think the right, despite what people would say today, in the 90s and 80s had a form of cancellation. They would say that this individual is satanic or this individual is, you know, they'd use different words to label them, but they had a form of saying, oh, this company does this or this, therefore we won't do business with them. And I think especially children's media was very afraid of crossing these boundaries for a very long time. And I think that the wokes more borrowed these existing tools, but implemented them much more effectively. And I think what we might be seeing here is big business is very susceptible to bullying, more so than it is looking for market demand.
Oh.
And
So wait, so could this be an issue of
Oh, that was a hard jump.
bureaucracies
You see that?
having basically the sensitivity to criticism, and that's why they're more subject to whatever the mainstream zeitgeist.
Did you see that? Like, look at that. The lighting, everything changed.
very susceptible to bullying, more so than it is looking for market demand.
Oh.
And
So wait, so could this be an issue of
I wonder if they reshot at night or they just changed the lighting or something.
bureaucracies having basically the sensitivity to criticism, and that's why they're more subject to whatever the mainstream zeitgeist is, because they have compliance departments, they have lawyers, they have marketing departments that are capable of hearing criticism and freaking out about it, whereas smaller organizations just literally don't have an ear or an eye to that kind of thing.
I wonder if it might even be that the type of person who works at a large company is more sensitive to criticism.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true, but that's an interesting thought. I can already think of counterexamples where that wouldn't be true, but yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting thought.
Our friend groups, you know, our job basically with the pronatalist movement is attracting criticism in a way that furthers the message of the movement.
Right.
So we're always going around baiting media sources to try to get them to talk about us, and then we use that to draw attention to our cause areas in ways that are usually pretty effective. Like, honestly, we've been enormously effective. I don't think that there's been a public media figure that has been as effective as us.
I might do a multi-stream soon just to see which platform has the most stable network, because this is not the first time this has happened. I've been having this trouble this whole past week. Luckily, it hasn't happened today where my stream itself has crashed, but I've booted people out of this room already a few times. Not me personally, but whatever's going on has booted people out of my room. So I'm so sorry about that. If you're someone who's watching and you got booted out, I don't know what's going on with that. I don't think it's YouTube. At least I hope it's not. So I don't know. I don't know what's happening there.
At either Rising or
Like I said, my stream yesterday got super throttled. I only had 4 viewers. That hasn't happened in years. So I don't know what's up with that.
catching attention in the last 5 years, which I take great pride in. But this
Years
has given
in
us
a year. It hasn't happened in a year where it's been that low. So I don't know what's going on.
a unique understanding of who has freaked out about knowing us or being publicly associated with us. And the people at startups or venture capital firms or small companies,
Yeah, they give
generally don't
They're
care.
like, okay, fine.
The bureaucrats who work or run very large companies are extremely scared of being associated with us.
Yeah.
They are extremely scared of criticism. And I wonder if a fear of failing, and which is I think where this fear of criticism comes from, failing in other people's eyes or being seen as not good enough, associates with working in large companies.
Yeah, well, I could see basically not being willing to stand for anything personal.
Is he advertising for Coors? Because he always turns to make sure to get the shot in of the beer.
and being really afraid of being subject to criticism would make a job at another company where you can always blame it on someone higher up the line, blame the company, blame your manager,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah, I could see that. And you could argue that also people with a bigger external.
Do you think they're really that pasty? Do you think it's lighting? Do you think they need like vitamin D? Do you think they need to go outside and like work out? Like, what do you think's going on there? I'm just curious.
Locus of control are more likely to be drawn to larger organizations and bureaucracies.
Actually, I'm having an understanding.
Because I went back in this channel and looked at some of the early stuff. She didn't used to be that pale. She used to have more of a tan. I'm just putting it out there.
Here, both of these types of people aren't just drawn to large companies, they're also drawn to academia. They're both career tracks where it's for people who are more afraid of failing. They don't want to go outside their bubble. They're just like, okay, this is what I've been doing.
Okay, my nose starting to give me shit, and I don't want to be sniffling all over this video. I'm going to go one more minute, and then I'm going to go to the closing screen. We'll go to the big screen, and then we'll call it a night.
Years, I'm just going to keep doing it if I can maybe make some money from doing it. And they're very sensitive. They have a lot of status anxiety. They're very sensitive to the status the job gives them. And so not just a fear of media criticism, but potentially a fear of criticism within these organizations makes the mimetic virus spread faster within the organization.
That's quite interesting. Yeah. Well, but then aren't you really ultimately just arguing the same thing that you've been arguing since the beginning, which is that mimetic viruses are more likely to spread in these large bureaucracies, and maybe the refinement you've gotten.
I don't think that the 90s version of like evangelical mom was really a mimetic virus. I think that they like evangelicalism didn't spread through companies in the same way wokeism spreads through companies. I think that what we are seeing is two things happening simultaneously. You have,
I don't know. Evangelicalism seems to me to be very virus-like,
this
very
phenomenon
mind virusy.
that I'm talking about with people more sensitive to criticism working in these large bureaucracies, on top of them also being more sensitive to, like, when a Guardian article says something mean about me, people in my life freak out about it. And then we always get the email, oh my God, how could this happen again? You must be devastated right now. And I'm like, bro, the Guardian doesn't even have a Twitter account anymore. Like, what are you talking about? Nobody reads this. It just establishes credibility for stuff like Wikipedia articles and getting in front of like a few other people's faces in terms of expanding our reach. But
Okay. We're good. Well, let's see what the button was.
yeah, that's my thought on that. But I'd also
Okay, he's continuing on. He's rambling. All right, let's go to the big screen and then let's call it a night. Okay, so again, about yesterday, I crashed out. I got up late. I woke up at like 2 a.m. I did a stream. No one watched. That has not happened in about a year. 11 months. It hasn't happened in about 11 months. So I don't know what's up with that. Today's stream was really bad. The throttling, not the throttling, I'm sorry. The buffering, that was really weird, really bad. That doesn't usually happen to me. I've had a week where I've been having trouble with crashing going on. So I don't know if that's my equipment. I don't know if that's YouTube. I don't know if that's Streamlabs. I don't know what's going on with that. But we'll be here again tomorrow. Tomorrow is the day before Thanksgiving. I will be working double shifts tomorrow, I believe. Or is that going to be Friday? I don't know. At some point, I'll be working a double. I got to go to bed. I have to go to work in the morning. I love you all. God loves you all. I forgive you for whatever you need forgiven for. God forgives you. Change your ways. Become a better person. Support this channel, please. I have Patreon. I have memberships. I have, I don't know, a ton of different things. There's a lot of ways you can support me. I think you can even do like gifts or super chats, maybe. I don't know. There's stuff you can do. Do it. Share this channel, like this channel, help promote this channel. Try and get big names. If there's another channel where you are liked and you're known and you want me to talk to that creator, tell that creator to come over to my channel or tell them to invite me onto their channel. I know my email is not working. I am going to change the email to my normal email. That will be fixed, but they can just comment. Just comment. Just put the name of the channel you want me to go visit. I'll go visit them. I'll bug whoever I got to bug. Happy Thanksgiving. Remember, this year we're going to side with the turkeys, so it's going to be really interesting during the meal. We're siding with the turkeys this year, people. Be prepared. Everybody, have a great night. Bye. Love y'all.